Ever get that feeling where you see a piece of art and it just kind of stops you in your tracks?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I know what you mean.
Yeah, well, that's what happened to me with Bob Camblin's Step Back.
Hmm. Interesting.
So imagine like this really peaceful landscape.
Okay.
There's a stream winding through these rocks, and in the distance, there's this like little building with a red roof,
Mm.
and it's all in these really calming colors, you know?
Yeah, I can picture it.
But then you notice these like strange fishing floats just kind of bobbing in the water. And at the very bottom, almost like it was left unfinished, are the words step back.
Ah.
And right there in parentheses is this question: should you take a step back, will you see the skull?
Wow. That's a powerful first impression right there.
I know, right?
I mean, that immediate sense of calm and then, bam, a subtle question mark.
Totally.
But Camblin's urging you to look deeper.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing in this deep dive.
I like it.
We're going beyond just looking at a pretty picture.
Right.
We're diving into these ideas of retreat reflection and finding that inner stillness that Camblin's work seems to be all about.
Sounds good.
And we've got some great material to work with. We have a YouTube video transcript that really dissects Step Back.
Awesome.
And then we have Camblin's own quotes and writings,
Always insightful.
plus a biography that maps out his journey as an artist.
Nice.
We also have selections from Zen and the Art of Enlightenment, which actually features his art, and a review of The Art of Everything, which also showcases his work.
So we're getting multiple perspectives
Exactly.
on both the art and the man himself.
And to top it off, we even have a personal reflection from one of his friends, Earl Staley.
Wow, so like a full picture.
Yeah, and by looking at all of this stuff together,
Right.
we can really get a sense of Camblin's artistic vision and the deeper philosophies that shaped his work.
I'm ready.
So what we want you to walk away with today is a solid understanding of these interconnected ideas.
Okay.
Why is stepping back so crucial for gaining clarity? What role did Camblin see art playing?
Good question.
Was it about questioning? Was it about contemplation?
Right.
And ultimately, what can we learn about this really unique artistic philosophy that Bob Camblin had?
Yeah, let's unravel that.
All right, so let's start with the painting itself, Step Back, and that invitation to stillness.
Okay.
The YouTube transcript had some really interesting interpretations.
Oh, yeah.
What jumped out at you about how the landscape could be seen as a reflection of our own minds?
Well, the transcript talks about how the calmness of the landscape, with the gentle flow of the water,
Right.
it all points to a mind that's at peace.
I see.
And then there's this idea that the flowing water and those scattered stones,
Yeah.
they represent our thoughts just kind of drifting by.
Like, we don't need to grasp onto them or try to control them.
Exactly. And that ties in with a lot of meditative practices,
For sure.
where you just observe your thoughts without judging them and let them come and go naturally.
So that step back becomes this gentle nudge to step away from that constant mental chatter and discover that quiet space within.
Yeah, like creating space for stillness.
Right. And the video suggests that it's in that act of letting go that we can actually see things more clearly.
Makes sense.
Now, here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay, tie me.
The transcript also brings in the I Ching,
Oh, wow.
specifically the hexagram called retreat, or ten.
Interesting.
And it's important to note that the I Ching isn't talking about retreating out of fear.
Right.
It's not about avoidance.
So what kind of retreat is it talking about?
It's more like a strategic withdrawal,
Huh.
a conscious decision to gain a wider perspective, to see beyond the immediate things that might be clouding our judgment.
Like stepping back to see the whole forest instead of just the trees.
Exactly. And the calm, undisturbed landscape in the painting becomes a visual reminder that sometimes the best way to move forward is to just be still.
Just give yourself space to observe.
And what we discover in that stillness, the video suggests, could really surprise us.
Like what kind of surprises?
Well, you start to see the bigger picture coming into focus.
Okay.
The rocks, the stream, the trees, even those almost hidden bathers in the distance.
Right.
It's like a reminder that life just keeps flowing whether we're trying to manage it or not.
Yeah, just going with the flow.
And so stepping back becomes this act of surrender. Trusting in that natural rhythm, allowing things to unfold without always trying to force a specific outcome.
That's a tough one for a lot of people,
I know.
right? To let go of that control.
It really makes you think,
Yeah.
what could you see if you took a step back in your own life right now? What could become clearer if you just allowed yourself that moment of quiet observation?
Good questions.
So let's shift gears a bit and dive into the mind of Bob Camblin himself through some of his quotes.
Okay, I'm ready.
This is where his unique perspective on art and life really shines through.
Yeah, he had a way with words.
What were some of the quotes that initially struck you as particularly revealing?
Well, there's this one that really stood out to me.
Hmm. Okay.
He says, fortunately, some things remain forever, or another 10 years perhaps.
Hmm.
There's this beautiful mix of hopefulness
Yeah.
and an acceptance of how things are always in flux.
It's like acknowledging the impermanence of things while still cherishing what we have.
And then there's this little observation he made after some cottonwood trees were cut down.
Oh, yeah.
He says, now with them gone, look.
Wow.
It's like the absence itself creates a new kind of awareness.
It's like he's saying pay attention to what's not there as much as what is there.
Exactly.
I see a theme emerging here.
Oh, tell me.
Finding insight in what's no longer there or in the process of change itself.
That seems to be a thread running through his work.
Definitely. Now let's get into some of his more philosophical musings.
Okay.
Like this quote, look into the atom, you get what you need. Look into magic, and you get what you need. Philosophy and art are in both.
Wow. That's deep.
Why, right?
It's like he's saying that all these different fields,
Yeah.
science, the mystical, philosophy, art, they all hold fundamental truths.
It's like a unified field of inquiry.
Right.
Approaching things from different angles, but ultimately arriving at similar core understandings.
Like all roads lead to Rome.
And then he follows that up by saying he wants to stick with common sense and the perfectly average view to see the miracles on both sides of science and magic.
So he's not picking sides.
No, he's embracing the in-between spaces, the nuances, rather than adhering to rigid categories.
He wants to find that intensely bright gray where they meet.
Yeah, that willingness to exist in the gray area.
It speaks volumes.
It suggests an openness to ambiguity and a rejection of overly simplistic ways of seeing the world.
Definitely.
Now, intuition seems to be really important to him.
Oh, for sure.
He says, the sixth sense is to be, without a doubt, senza dubio, no doubt.
It's about that deep, unwavering sense of knowing.
That gut feeling that goes beyond rational explanation.
And his connection to nature is palpable in this quote. Find something in nature that completes you and then surrender.
There's that theme of surrender again.
Yeah, but this time to the natural world.
As a source of wholeness.
It's recognizing our place within a larger system and finding harmony through that connection.
And when we get to his ideas on the creative process, things get really fascinating.
Oh, I love this part.
He has this one where he says, when you think, don't act. When you act, don't think.
Whoa.
It's almost like he's suggesting we bypass that overthinking mind.
And just be in the flow.
Yeah, allowing for a more direct, intuitive engagement with the work.
Which connects to another one of his quotes.
Yeah.
Where he says, don't let the demon of being right get in. Flow and think of what you are doing, not what you plan to do. Step off the train of thought.
There it is again.
Step off the train of thought.
Echoing that step back.
It's all about disengaging from that linear, goal-oriented thinking.
To really be present in the creative moment.
Embracing the journey itself, rather than fixating on a predetermined outcome.
And he relates this to what he calls zazen mind.
In the context of drawing, reading music.
Where those sudden insights, inspirations, solutions just pop up when we're not actively searching for them.
It's like that relaxed yet focused awareness.
You know those moments when you're doing something almost on autopilot?
Yeah.
And then, boom, the solution to a problem you've been wrestling with just hits you.
Exactly. That's a glimpse of what Camblin might mean by zazen mind.
A state where the mind is aimless in a way, but still receptive to insights.
It's about being open to those unexpected flashes of brilliance.
And he challenges conventional learning with this call to resist learning. Learn to fail, learn to relax, learn to feel, learn how to really think.
Powerful stuff.
And then he says, I didn't learn anything new, but I know a lot more now.
That's so paradoxical.
It's like true understanding comes from experience and a shift in perception.
Rather than just accumulating information.
It's a critique of rote learning and an emphasis on learning by doing and feeling.
Totally.
And his perspective on how art has evolved is really thought-provoking.
Also.
He says, art is and it isn't, and now everyone knows. And then he cautions, if experienced, no description is necessary. But often, making out is confused with love, and feeling good is not always art.
So he's pointing out how we can mistake superficial recognition or a pleasant feeling for genuine deep engagement with art.
Yeah. He seems to value a more profound, authentic connection.
That goes beyond surface-level appreciation.
Absolutely.
And there's this gem about making the most of things.
Yeah.
In making the best of it, one should remember, there are no mistakes. You are doing the best you can, and mistakes are nature's way of telling you to trust your instincts, or the next mistake could be really bad.
It's such a forgiving approach.
Both life and creativity,
It embraces imperfection as part of the process.
and encourages us to trust our gut.
And then he touches on this holographic view of reality.
What do you mean?
He says, "We are holograms, and the more we get together, the clearer it becomes."
That's a mind bender,
It suggests a deep interconnectedness.
where each individual part contains the essence of the whole.
In the context of Camblin's work, it might suggest how our individual experiences and perspectives contribute to a larger shared understanding of reality.
And why coming together can lead to clearer insight.
Exactly. And then there's this almost poetic phrase,
Let's hear it.
time travel at the speed of enlightenment,
Whoa.
suggesting that inner transformation can transcend the limitations of linear time.
Like a quantum leap in consciousness.
Going back to 1968, he had this really ahead of his time idea about the ecology of art.
Oh, yeah.
He suggested that artists just being might contribute to the balance of nature,
Interesting.
especially in a world that's gone off kilter.
So art is a force for healing.
In a way, yeah.
It's like the artist's authentic presence has an inherent value that goes beyond just the creation of physical objects.
And he definitely had thoughts on what he called consumer art,
Mm-hmm.
noting the shift from contemplation to shock and recognition,
He seemed to long for a more contemplative way of engaging with art.
valuing depth and introspection over fleeting novelty.
It's about slowing down and really taking it in.
So let's move on to Camblin's life and his journey as an artist,
Okay.
because understanding his background really helps to put all these ideas into context.
For sure.
He's described as this enigmatic and iconoclastic artist,
With a surprisingly large body of work that's not widely known.
which only adds to the mystery surrounding him.
Totally.
He was born in Oklahoma,
Okay.
got his start at the Kansas City Art Institute,
Solid foundation.
and even earned a Fulbright scholarship to Italy.
Wow.
Talk about an immersive experience in art history and culture.
It must have been incredibly influential.
He went on to teach at a number of places, including Rice University.
So he had a foot in academia.
But then, in 1976, he made this dramatic decision.
What happened?
He decided to embrace a nomadic life completely dedicated to his art.
That's a big leap.
It speaks to his unwavering commitment to his creative calling.
Prioritizing art over the stability of a traditional career.
And during the 70s and 80s, he traveled extensively,
Living and breathing art.
supporting himself through his work and drawing inspiration from all the different cultures and landscapes he encountered.
What a life.
And it's amazing that we have access to his personal drawings and reflections from as far back as 1950 up to 1974.
Works he never intended for public consumption.
Exactly. They offer a really raw, unfiltered glimpse into his creative process and inner world.
A treasure trove of insights.
His artistic philosophy, as we've touched on, was all about speaking directly to the viewer's soul.
Evoking emotions and contemplation without relying on academic interpretations.
He believed art should speak for itself,
And he went through these different artistic phases.
starting with abstract expressionism and then developing this style called Muchas Volantes in the 70s.
Tell me about that.
It was inspired by Dada and surrealism,
Okay.
and involved these seemingly random arrangements of dots and dashes that create this optical illusion.
Like what kind of illusion?
It's like shimmering or movement, almost like those floaters you see in your vision.
I see.
This is a very direct way of playing with our perception.
Experimenting with form and how we see reality.
Exactly. And he was also very collaborative.
Oh, yeah.
Working with artists like Earl Staley and Joe Tate
Yeah.
under names like B&E Productions and The Holding Firm.
Like a collective.
Yeah, really challenging those traditional notions of what art is and who the artist is.
Pushing the boundaries.
He even frequently signed his works as anonymous or anonymous artists.
Letting go of personal recognition.
Later on, he created series like Big Al and Descent from the Cross.
Showing his constant evolution as an artist.
Now let's talk about the books that feature his work.
Okay.
The Zen and the Art of Enlightenment and the Art of Everything.
How do these books shed light on Camblin's vision?
Well, Zen and the Art of Enlightenment is really interesting.
How so?
It's filled with Camblin's drawings, and it sets out to explore this idea of finding enlightenment through art and language.
Not through rigid doctrines or rules?
Exactly. The book describes his illustrations as these strange, often humorous, and sometimes unsettling koans.
Oh, wow, like Zen riddles.
Yeah, and for those who aren't familiar with koans,
Right.
they're essentially paradoxical riddles or stories used in Zen practice to kind of shake things up.
To break through those logical barriers.
Exactly.
So the artwork acts as a tool for contemplation.
And a challenge to our conventional understanding of things.
And the book promotes this idea of everyday enlightenment.
Yeah.
Finding beauty in the unexpected humor, even in decay, and accepting the constant change that's happening all around us.
It's about seeing the interconnectedness of everything.
Life, death, joy, sorrow.
And embracing that impermanence as a liberating force.
A core principle in Zen philosophy.
The book really acts as a mirror for self-inquiry.
Prompting us to ask questions without giving us easy answers.
Encouraging that deep personal exploration.
It's a call to slow down and think deeply.
Especially in a world that's constantly bombarding us with distractions.
To resist those quick judgments and embrace ambiguity.
And the art of everything takes this even further.
Oh, in what way?
It's presented as this conversation between art and philosophy,
Interesting.
delving into the absurd, the profound, and the overlooked aspects of life.
All through Camblin's sketches.
Yeah, and it shows how ordinary objects can become these powerful symbols.
Like what, for example?
Like a figure 4 trap,
Okay.
representing how we get stuck. Or a tattooed arm holding untold stories and family history.
I like that.
Or a still frog embodying a sense of Zen-like stillness.
It's about seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary.
And the book actually describes Camblin's drawings as paradoxes made visible,
Almost like blueprints for ideas.
inviting us to think more deeply.
It explores themes of illusion, the traps we create for ourselves.
Like fear, our obsession with time, the limitations of our self-perception.
Right.
And then, of course, the concept of stillness.
Asking whether it's stagnation or a profound kind of peace.
And again, there's this refusal to provide simple answers,
Instead, we're given these riddles that are like Zen koans.
challenging us to find our own meaning.
And the foreword of Zen and the art of enlightenment makes these really fascinating connections.
Yeah.
It connects different art movements like realism, impressionism, expressionism, abstract art,
Wow.
to the philosophies of Zen and the I Ching.
Emphasizing intuition, the interconnectedness of things, and the cyclical nature of our experiences.
It gives us this historical context.
To see Camblin's work within a larger tradition of art that explores our inner worlds and the deeper truths about ourselves and the universe.
The artwork in both books is meant to be a gateway.
To heightened awareness.
It's not about passive looking.
It's about engaging in this silent, personal dialogue that can lead to self-discovery and even spiritual growth.
So interpreting Camblin's work becomes this very personal journey.
Where each viewer participates in creating meaning.
Now let's bring in the voice of Earl Staley Camblin's close friend.
His quote gives us this really touching glimpse into their relationship.
Yeah, he talks about Camblin's passing and the strong bond they shared.
And he mentions how they shared studios for years under the name B&E Productions.
A testament to their collaborative spirit.
And he even says that he learned how to draw and paint from Bob.
Wow. So Camblin was a mentor to him.
And he remembers Camblin as this incredible storyteller.
Someone who could captivate people for hours.
It really brings Camblin to life as more than just an artist.
Yeah, you get a sense of his personality.
He talks about their collaborative drawings and paintings.
And some of their more unconventional shows.
Like the tattoo show.
Way before tattoos were mainstream.
Yeah, and Joe Tate's Backyard and the camping show.
It highlights their playful, experimental approach to art.
Staley also describes Camblin's later studio as this wizard's den.
Filled with all sorts of curious objects.
It sounds like a space that truly reflected Camblin's unique imagination.
And there's this story about Camblin owning a Mr. Peanut costume.
I love that.
And then eventually giving away all his treasure.
Like a shedding of material possessions.
And then his move to Oregon and Louisiana with his wife, Nancy.
And how he kind of disappeared from his Houston friends.
Fading into the background.
It's interesting how this echoes the theme of retreat we saw in Step Back.
Yeah, a withdrawal from the world.
And Staley ends with this beautiful memory of Camblin as both a friend and a teacher.
Emphasizing the impact he had on his life.
It's a really heartfelt farewell.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we've covered a lot of ground.
We started with that invitation to find stillness and step back.
Explored how that connected to Camblin's own words, emphasizing intuition and questioning.
And looked at how his art and the books featuring it encouraged deeper contemplation.
Aligning with those Zen principles and the spirit of philosophical inquiry.
And it's clear that Camblin's work isn't about giving us easy answers.
It's about prompting us to embark on our own personal journeys of discovery.
So on that note, I want you to think again about those strange-looking fishing floats in Step Back.
Okay.
Were they just part of that peaceful scene, or were they another one of Camblin's subtle puzzles?
Inviting us to look beyond the surface,
Maybe the act of stepping back isn't just about finding stillness.
but about allowing the unexpected
Those seemingly insignificant details
to reveal a deeper layer of
in
meaning.
the landscape of our own minds.
A final thought to ponder.
Maybe it's time to seek out Camlin's work for yourself
Or simply take that step back in your own life.
and see what new perspectives might emerge.
Food for thought.
Until next time.
Keep exploring.